Hey guys, welcome back to Bible Relearned. I'm Jordan. Today we're going to talk about living in fear and why we shouldn't live in fear, right? So fear is basically an unpleasant feeling like triggered by a perception of danger, real or imagined, right? And so you got to realize also fear is really, it's an emotion, but it's also a spirit. And so that's why like God says, he hasn't given us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of love, power, and a sound mind. And so what we got to remember is God's promises, because fear could be like an indication of you not living in the truth and the knowledge of God. So essentially, you just got to focus on God's promises, believe in them. So you got to wake up like every day, realizing what God has told you, what he has reaffirmed in the word. And as you continue to read that word daily, and that starts to, cut you up inside, it starts to seep in, and it gets stuck. You start to remember it, and even if you don't remember it, the spirit remembers, and it brings to remembrance which your mind forgets. And so what you really want to do is feed your mind with like God's positive words, the things that he reaffirms, his promises, obviously, because the battleground is in the mind, and Satan is obviously seeking who he may devour. And you gotta be strong by keeping on God's full armor, keeping on the full armor of God, essentially. So the Lord will deliver you from all your fears as long as you trust in him. So you just gotta put your mind at a place where you're leaning on God and not leaning into your flesh, into what you see. Because we walk by faith, not by sight, right? So, if you're like afraid to start a YouTube channel or something like that because you care what people think, there's like a verse for that. In that verse is Galatians 1:10. It says, "Or do I now persuade men or God? Or do I seek to please men? For if I yet please men, I should not be the servant of Christ." So there's so many verses you could fall back on when you fall in fear. It's like you're not serving yourself anymore, you're serving God. And so essentially, going back to what I was saying about the promises, you got to remember, some promises. You got to study them so you always remember them. And then when you get to this point where you're walking and you're thinking a thought like, "Ooh, I might not want to do that," you just got to go back to that foundation which you just sowed in yourself. You just read all these verses, all these promises. Now you got to start putting this stuff to use. You can't just, assume the fear is going to go away. That feeling is just going to go away. Sometimes you need deliverance. Other times you could handle it on your own with God's word, because the word is a sword. And so essentially, you should look at it like this. We can look at Luke 14:27. And it says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives to you, let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." So God is telling you, do not accept fear. Do not let anything make you or weigh you down in your heart to where you're afraid, because you got him at your side all day, every day. As long as you get in your word, you ain't got nothing to be afraid of. The more you read and the more you study, the more better, you're going to be able to apply these simple verses to your life, because you got to protect yourself, guard your heart, for out of it comes the issues of life. So basically, the devil sows fear in all people. Those who don't have their guard up are obviously going to be susceptible. So you basically just submit yourself to God and resist the devil, and he'll flee from you. So how do you resist the devil if you have a fearful thought? You cast that thought down, because it seeks to rise above the knowledge of God. God's knowledge tells us that we ain't supposed to be afraid. So we got to basically cast that idea that whatever is making us feel afraid, you got to throw it down. You got to give it to God and lean into God. If you draw near to God, he'll draw near to you. Remember that we're imperfect people. We're living in these bodies, but we're spirit people as well. So we really got to clean ourselves off, because if we're still living in the flesh, if we're still doing sins, and you can see my other video regarding the sins, essentially we're allowing these things to come on to us, these different spirits, like especially fear, of course. Like a lot of people, I'm sure, are afraid when COVID came out. I actually got some anxiety when COVID came out. And, this was way back, maybe a year ago. And, because I wasn't as strong in God's promises and understanding what he's promising me, essentially, the more you study and practice, like study these words, And also having a prayer life. Talk to God every day. Wake up in the morning, pray to him. Ask him to be with you, guard you. Ask him to show you whatever it is, he needs to show you that day so you can go forward in doing his work that he's called you to do. Fear is so bad, it's like a house divided, essentially. It's like you want to achieve something, but you're too afraid to do it. And so, as he says in Mark 3:25, if a house be divided against itself, the house can't stand. So, just imagine you going inside of a house, right? And the house is crumbling, as you walk into it. The house can't stand because it's not built on a firm foundation. So basically, what you have to do, like I said, is essentially put on the new man. The new man is going to walk around with God's knowledge in his head, and he's going to know what God has in store for him. So as it says in Colossians 3:10, and put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of him that created him. So it's saying you got to obviously put the new man on, and the only way to do that is to jump into the knowledge of the man that created you. God, obviously. So jump into God's book, learn about him, learn about his image, and learn what he has in store for you, and then fall into that behavior that he says you should be living by. As God says, his people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Because they've rejected knowledge, God will also reject them. So just remember that there is no fear in love. All like perfect love casteth out all fear. So what you really got to do is when those thoughts come to your mind, you simply catch them as they come in. You got to really be sensitive and in tune with yourself to know that, oh, I'm operating in fear, or is it wisdom that I'm not doing this, that I'm not making the choice that I want to go out and do this or that? Or is it just the spirit of fear that's stopping you from achieving whatever it is you want to achieve? So just remember, when you're afraid, put your trust in the Lord and walk by faith, not by sight. Because there's a lot of things out here that's going on right now, and we're trying to get to this place we don't even know sometimes. And it's like you don't even have an idea how to get there because you're sitting there looking at every obstacle in your way. But God will open that path up for you as soon as you lean on him. He'll make your path straight. And so you just got to walk by faith, not by sight, like I said. If you're in fear, you're serving the devil, because God clearly told us he didn't give us a spirit of fear, but a spirit of love, power, and a sound mind. So remember, no man can serve two masters, as it says in Matthew 6:24. For he will either hate one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You can't serve God and mammon, but you also can't serve God and the devil. Thanks for joining me for this video, guys. Like, subscribe, comment down below, and if you guys have any questions or anything you need to ask, to get clarification or anything like that, just put it down in the comment section or email me. All right, you guys have a great day.